me seeing it because I can see you and we're in conversation now.
And we are that's right. So, Paul, thank you for inviting me to be part of this supervision group. I'm really, I'm sorry, supervision group. I'm really excited. Tell me how you came up with this idea.
Well, I think there is a need for diverse supervisors. And that in this case means that it's a sort of integration of your experience with my experience, both with emotionally focused couples therapy and the EFT model, that applies both to couples therapy, individual therapy, and family therapy, but also integrates culture. So my hope is that we attract people who are interested in learning the EFT model, interested in learning how to do supervision well, but also interested in integrating culture into both the clinical work of their supervisees, but also into their supervision. I just don't think enough of that is done. And so, uh, and so I thought it would be a novel idea with someone from your Mexican background, someone from my African American background to work together and to talk about culture um, from our various perspectives and see the similarities and see the differences, but always trying to integrate the clinical model with the lives of our clients, the lives of our supervisees.
Yeah, and I think that's why I love the idea, right? So you're absolutely right. When we're studying a model, and you go to externship, for example, they have so much content to give you, and you're a trainer, and you know that. So you have so much content that it's really hard to add more information. But when you want to become a supervisor, a leader in our field, and you want to mentor others, I think that discussing culture and getting comfortable discussing culture and what does that mean, not only just from ethnicity point of view, but all the cultural values that impact not only the clinicians that we're supervising, but also the clinicians that they're seeing. And none of us get trained to have conversations about culture and being uncomfortable talking about all those cultural values.
Yes, and there's cultural joy, there's cultural challenges and stressors. And, but you're right, there's so much in any clinical model, and particularly EFT. It's a very rich, complicated model that you learn really over time. The externship being the beginning part of that process. And there's so much you want to teach. And that
Yes.
becomes the dilemma. There's so much, but we don't just depend on the externship. Then we go into core skills, we go into supervision. But because there's so much, there's never really room for extra focus other than in sort of master's training, workshops that might occur afterwards. And so what happens, I think, too often is that we just solely stick to the model, and the cultural piece becomes a gap
Yeah.
and in that gap, we kind of stay in our silos.
Yeah.
So one of those silos may be, treatment of African American clients.
Yeah.
One of those silos may be treatment of of Hispanic, and that can mean so many things
Yeah.
under that rubric that it doesn't. We all know, oh yeah, yeah, Hispanic, but we don't really know the various cultures that make that
Yeah.
and the different ways, the nuances around attachment
Yeah.
that gets and how the rhythms change because of those things,
Yeah.
but also the lived experience, the realities what it means to be from any one of those silos. And we get to thinking that our silo is the most important. And it is in some ways, whoever that client, that supervisee in front of us and whatever culture they represent is important. But uh, because we don't have rich conversations about culture, we don't know the similarities
Yeah,
or the differences. And then I think maybe if we spent more time there, that would have to be more time in externships,
yeah,
more time in core skills, and certainly more time in supervision with actual cases
yeah,
to get the to get good at the complexities of integrating. Because what that means is that person is seen
yeah,
in a very deep way.
yeah,
And there's a lot to be said about the deep ways that culturally different folks experience
yeah.
life. And to be able to connect with that, I think you can just process deeper dynamics.
Yeah. So even as you're sharing that, right, which I'm like, and none of us as therapists have the capacity to integrate all of that just in externship or core skills. We
Right.
need time to be doing that. However, the invitation that you are actually giving to all of us is how can we integrate this from the beginning so it doesn't feel so foreign or uncomfortable when it's in front of us, especially because if you're not exposed to other cultures, it's going to be hard for you to recognize all those nuances that come up for your supervisees or even for you as a clinician.
Yeah. And and there's such I think the predominant uh, emotional experience for our supervisees or people participating in externships, core skills, or for that matter, in any professional training or graduate school, is that culture makes us uncomfortable
Yeah,
because we, in fact, live in a multicultural world. So we're not just talking about the isolation of one culture, which tends to be done in our clinical book. So if it's a clinical book on diversity, they'll have various chapters for various cultures and highlighting, the aspects of, cultural strengths, cultural challenges, and so on. Um, but not the multicultural aspect that we live in various cultures where there's a dominant culture.
yeah.
And then there's a variety of others that make up the full social network.
Mhm,
And so when we get to that level, people get uncomfortable talking about the larger culture in which
mhm.
our clients operate, or we as therapists
Yeah,
operate.
yeah.
Uh, so we rather not bring it up.
I was gonna say, well, of course, unless you are a person of othering, um,
Yes,
whatever subculture that is, then for us, we're really comfortable being in it because we see it all the time. We're in it all the time. And if you're comfortable, if you have awareness of that, if you have gone through the integration of, there's a you, there's a me, and there's a we, and how do we interact with that? And
yes,
that's part of the cultural humility, cultural opportunity invitation. However, when we go to trainings where we are trained to see something through one lens, that's when it becomes an issue because we don't get to recognize the othering or the other stressors, or we get to minimize it um, because we just want to focus on something because that's what we were trained on. So I
yeah,
think that this invitation that you're giving us and the multiple groups that you're doing, this one is specifically focusing on supervisors, I think is really important for that reason. How can we be comfortable seeing, witnessing, integrating, processing out loud in community so that you see other possibilities, not just one, not the one that we were trained on.
yeah. I am curious about this, and maybe you can respond to it because, you know, I I think sometimes we there is a focus on EFT to develop really good EFT skills.
Yep.
So how to do really deep withdrawal re-engagement, deep pursuer softenings, how to get the wording just right, or the use of voice,
Mhm,
right for the emotional experience.
mhm,
And so I share that. Uh, and but I'm thinking there is something about integrating culture that is aligned with that.
yeah.
And I think people think that that's separate,
Mm-mm.
doing good clinical work. And I want to get your reaction to that because you are reacting. So,
I was like, there's no such thing for all of us. And think outside the box. All the couples that you're seeing are not just from one ethnicity, one race. When you go to work, you're not seeing everything just through one lens. And then also let me back up. As I'm going through the world humanizing therapists and supervisors, there's no right way to teach you how to do things because you have to be so present with the client in front of you in order to match that tone of voice, in order to use their words, in order to help them either regulating in the moment so that they will be able to for their amygdala to relax so that I can see what you're saying in that moment so that I'm not assessing for what is the threat, how do I have to defend myself in this moment, or how do I have to protect myself in this moment because I feel attacked, because I feel that I'm not justified. Can I justify myself? So all that urgency that comes up is telling me in that moment that their nervous system is hijacked. And in that moment, there's no integration. There's no, oh yeah, I couldn't see it that way. Or, oh yeah, I remember this now. Like there's none of that because we're panicking. So for me, anytime that someone asks me, what is the perfect line? Well, I don't know until I'm there. I don't know. So one point for me is how do I humanize you so that you can be comfortable, if not recognizing what is happening in front of you? Two, how do I get you comfortable matching what is happening in front of you so that the client feels seen, client feel understood because we're working so hard in that. And then two, there's no such thing as a cultural as an add-in as an spice that we're gonna add on in
yeah,
that moment.
yeah,
It's in it is it's our values, it's our early template, it's the way that we prioritize things. Is this is what I remember, this is my early template, this is what I witnessed, this is what I regress to when I'm dysregulated. So culture actually is in, again, when we have society culture, family culture, ethnicity culture, gender culture, when you have like all these sub values that come to it. So actually, culture is so in it that you don't separate it. It's just that you're not trained to see it that way.
I see. I mean, so for me, what you're saying is that to the extent I recognize the multi-dimensional nature of culture,
Yeah.
I can use wording
Mhm.
developing their internal world that matches their internal world and view of that. And in vulnerable moments, sometimes there are cultural layers to
Mhm.
that. For example, with African American men, maybe similar to Latino men, that the idea of manhood
Mhm.
in terms of the male culture may be lurking in terms of how we think about ourselves when we get into these vulnerable moments,
Yeah.
and that the culture prescribes very negative uh, appraisals
Yes.
of those moments if we're emotional.
Yes.
And so we have to be cognizant
Yeah.
of that, that there may be blocks
Mhm.
to emotional expression,
Mhm.
but that the emotion is there
Yeah.
and we have to figure out our ways of working with that
Mhm.
that is attuned to these major blocks that underneath, if you press on in some ways, it will evoke humiliation and shame
Yes.
as opposed to hurt and a welcomeness in hurt that
Yeah.
they might draw their partner to them in a emotionally engaged conversation, as opposed to humiliation and shame. And the corollary is discussed with their partner because there's a cultural
Yeah.
element to that. And
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yes to all of that, right? So all of this sounds very heady. So our job as clinicians or as supervisors helping clinicians is, can we give permission to the client to use the language and the emotion that they're comfortable? Can we make sense of that? Can we follow the story, the emotional bank that is there that they don't have access to yet, in
yes,
order for us to be able to give that, to act as a mirror? Like, is this what you're trying to do? Is this what you're trying to? I can see why you were doing that. Totally makes sense to me. I'm wondering, however, if in this moment, like we do that in EFT so well.
yes,
However, when it's not separated in layers of this is culture values, this is culture strengths, this is permission given. And most of us do not understand that concept. Like, you don't need permission. Yes, through a cultural lens, I do. I need permission when I don't have that template, and everything that you know about me could be stereotypes, and I do not fit that stereotype as well.
yes. And the reaction and sensitivity about stereotypes
Yeah.
is that we have to be comfortable and learn stereotypes of various, because
Yeah.
I do think there's some similarity.
Yes.
Because the stereotypes, I think, get often promoted by the majority culture,
Mhm.
and they're not that creative and they're not that unique in some ways. And so applies to one minority group gets applied to, when I mean minority in terms of the
Yeah.
majority culture, so the multicultural piece, the
Yeah.
other cultures
Yeah.
that stereotype with certain views, which then gets internalized.
Yes.
And see, I wonder, I just think with groups that are supervision groups
Mhm.
where we're seeing couple after couple, supervisor after super, who are from multicultural groups, we
Yeah.
begin to learn and enrich our
Yeah.
EFT supervision,
Yeah.
but also our EFT model
Yeah.
that includes integration at every level, at every step, in every stage of the EFT model with cultural, sometimes variations,
Yeah.
sometimes with just cultural humility. And but it's deeply enriched
Mhm.
by just the what we don't get in graduate school, what we
Yeah.
don't get in externships and core skills, and in general in supervision
Yeah.
is a rich, consistent diversity,
Yeah. Yeah.
not one or two. And call that one or two cases and call it the diverse. No, it's a richness of diversity
Yeah.
that excludes no one, but includes people who are interested in the integration
Yeah.
of culture. And no such group exists,
Yeah.
Liliana. No, they just aren't. And I dare say they don't exist in EFT, they don't exist in AEDP, they don't exist in CBT,
Yeah.
and they don't exist in psychodynamic oriented
Yeah.
therapy. Right?
No, I think there's a movement right now when it comes to culture, um, because we woke up, and we want more. We do not want to be silenced. Look, even when I talk about Latinos, which I even start by saying, look, I don't attend those meetings, even though someone believes I do. When they decided Hispanic or Latino, I was not part of that conversation. When they say Latinx, I was not part of that conversation.
Right.
And then when they say Latina, and I was like, okay, definitely, I need to be invited to these conversations. Can I have a say? But even when I said, I grew up in Mexico and I came to the US, and people were like, oh, so you understand Mexicans? I was like, dude, there's like over 30 states
Yes.
in my country.
Yes.
So I always have to be asking questions in order to say, what does that mean here? I have an idea, kind of like in the US, there's a difference between east, west, south, north. It's the same thing in Mexico. And as I'm studying and learning more about global culture, what I'm learning is that we do not know anything. We know very little. So then I tend to lead now with this question: what is the intent? If I use stereotypes, what is the intent? What was the intent when you use words such as minority or minority or majority? What is the intent when you said culture? Are you focusing on what aspect of the culture? So what I'm doing now as a seasoned supervisor is I tend to go with so much curiosity. And in supervision, that's what I do. I tend to ask questions. Tell me about this door that you decide to go in. Tell me why you decided to go through somatic versus emotion. What was in it in the room that guide you to go there? When you ask about the home culture, what was it in that moment that you're like, oh, there's something here that we can bring to light to help
Mm,
this couple make sense of it?
mm,
So it's always about curiosity, but that which is what was the intent that we needed to connect, that we needed to justify, that we needed to, like, what was it? And somehow I tend to humanize just being curious, which what was the intent? I tend to humanize everyone around me because now there's that space for opportunity to learn. And I think that's what I'm guiding myself now, which is what is it that I need to learn from you? And if you're open, what can you learn from me?
yeah. Well, as you say, uh, Mexico is a large country.
It
And
is.
it's like, oh, uh, I don't know, maybe it's my own ignorance, is that it never occurred to me to begin to ask questions about, like, well, what part of Mexico are you from?
Yeah.
And what does that mean in terms of other parts of Mexico that other people are
Yeah.
from? Um, and does that differ with regard to men and women,
Hmm.
or are there, and so on? So these are like the kind of identity oriented questions that begin to find the complexity
Yeah.
of someone from a culture that there are also microcultures.
Yes.
We just lump
Yes.
Mexicans in one group because that is too often what we do in the States.
Yeah.
So we don't think about Mexico as north, south, east, and west as we think, oh, north, south, east, and west in the States.
Yeah.
But they can be these cultural variations that we need to like ask people about because there's a portion of their identity
Yeah.
that may be tied
Yeah.
to important elements that'll show up
Yep.
in the beginnings of therapy in terms of the working alliance, that we
Yeah.
begin to ask them these questions. They begin to think, oh, you're interested in my whole genuine self.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there may be challenges and stressors that are there with vulnerabilities that
Hmm.
we can develop in stage one
And
and also in stage two.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. So for all of you who are watching us in this live that Paul and I are doing, our hope is that you join us in our groups. If you are in the journey of becoming a supervisor, And the question to you is, what kind of supervisor do you want to be? We all strive to be a best
Right.
supervisors,
Right.
but in that, what kind of supervisor are you striving to be? How comfortable you want to get to look at cultural layers? And hopefully you get to join us, and we will include the Facebook Live, the link so that you can go and get more information for our group, which starts October 7th. And we were going to do it in September, but Paul is doing an amazing training starting in September here in Colorado. So we're very lucky that he's going to be here with Robert, specifically doing an externship focusing on multicultural. So if you are out there, please come and take it. You'll be lucky to have these two teaching you externship. But we will include the link so that you can come and join us and continue with these conversations that Paul and I get the pleasure of having when we meet just to discuss EFT. Paul, anything else that you want to add?
I think we're both interested in quality work, and so we want to engage supervisors and supervisors candidates. And I say supervisors
Yeah,
intentionally because it would be okay to join our group if you are already a certified supervisor, because my bet is that you didn't get the integration of culture in a way that we're going to do that.
yeah,
But for supervisors candidates, we hope to really create an environment where you are an exceptional EFT supervisor.
yeah.
Yeah.
So please join us.
That's-
We are already at the end of August. Go check it out. And Paul, again, thank you for inviting me and for starting this series of mentorship to give back to our community.
All right. You're welcome, and I look forward to working with you.
Me too.
Please join us.